We live in a world where the loudest voices often get rewarded. But tell me, has noise ever truly solved chaos? What if the real power didn't belong to those who shout, but to those who remain calm when the storm hits? Modern culture glorifies urgency, instant replies, instant reactions, instant outrage. But has that obsession with speed made us wiser or weaker? Maybe the strongest move is the one that waits. Society tells us to follow your feelings. But what if your feelings are the very thing destroying your clarity? The Stoics believed emotions are not commands, but information. What if calmness, not passion, is the real key to control? Life has a way of testing you when you least expect it. It pushes you to your breaking point, forces you to confront setbacks that shake the foundation of who you thought you were, and throws storms at you that leave you questioning which way is forward, backward, or down. These aren't gentle lessons. They are moments designed to rattle you at the core. And yet, in the very heart of these trials, one factor alone will determine the outcome: your ability to remain calm. A calm mind is not weakness. In fact, it is the sharpest weapon you will ever carry. It sees solutions where others see only problems. It takes the obstacles life hurls at you and transforms them into stepping stones. The Stoics said it best: you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Think about it, most people don't fail because the challenge is impossible. They fail because fear and chaos take over. They crumble not because the storm is stronger, but because their minds were never prepared to stand firm. But when you train yourself to be still, when you practice refusing to let raw emotion dictate your choices, you rise above. In stillness, you see clearly. In calmness, you act with precision. And in that steadiness, you become unshakable. That's the power we are here to unlock together. Modern life doesn't politely warn you before a crisis hits. It doesn't tap you on the shoulder and whisper, "Get ready." It slams into you. Sometimes it builds slowly, like a storm you can see in the distance. Other times it crashes over you like a rogue wave, leaving you gasping for clarity. One moment you're at ease, and the next the familiar ground under your feet feels like it's moving. Your job, your family, even your own thoughts seem uncertain. The real question isn't whether the storm will come. It will. The question is whether your mind will remain steady while it rages. Marcus Aurelius reminded us again, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. That strength is forged in the space between external chaos and internal clarity. That gap is where your destiny is decided. Calmness is not something you practice only when everything is easy. Anyone can appear composed when life is smooth. The real test is whether you can hold steady when the air turns sharp, when voices rise, when the future feels uncertain. Too many people think calmness is just a personality trait. You're either born with it or you're not. But calm is not luck, and it's not genetic. It is a skill, a muscle that can be trained. And like any muscle, it grows stronger the more you use it. Calmness is not about pretending nothing is wrong. It's not about faking a smile through pain. It's about holding your head high while others lose theirs. It's the discipline of not letting panic dictate your choices. Carl Jung once observed, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." In crisis, that choice is everything. Do you become scattered or do you become steady? Modern society trains us to react instantly. A notification pops up and you reply before you think. A snide comment stings, and you snap back without pause. Someone cuts you off in traffic, and anger flares before reason can catch up. Reaction feels natural because it's quick, but it's dangerous. It's like handing the steering wheel of your life to whatever startled you last. And once you're reacting, you are no longer in control. The moment is controlling you. Responding, on the other hand, is how you take the wheel back. You create a gap between what happens and how you act. In that gap lies your power. Think of the last time emotions hijacked your judgment. Maybe you said something you didn't mean, or made a choice out of frustration that you later regretted. At the time, it felt justified. Our emotions always try to convince us they are the truth. But when the dust settled, clarity returned, and with it came the realization you could have chosen differently. That is why the mind must be trained before the storm arrives. Under pressure, you will default to your training. If you haven't built the discipline to pause, to breathe, to think before you act, then chaos will choose for you. Stress isn't just mental. It hijacks the body. Heart racing, breath shortening, muscles tightening, your nervous system dumps you into survival mode. Rational thought shuts down, replaced by primal instinct. That's why fear and panic feel so overwhelming. They literally rewire your brain in the moment. But here's the liberating truth. You can reverse that process. Your most powerful tool is also the most overlooked: your breath. Slow your breath and you slow your heart. Slow your heart and your thoughts steady. Just a few deep, deliberate breaths remind your nervous system that you are not in immediate danger, that you are safe enough to think clearly. This is the same technique used by Navy divers, elite athletes, and surgeons, people who make life or death decisions under crushing pressure. Breathing is the first line of defense, but it's not the last. The mind must also be trained to see differently. When you see an obstacle as a dead end, it feels heavy and final. But reframe it as a challenge and everything shifts. A challenge demands engagement. It invites growth. The obstacle hasn't changed, but your relationship to it has. Epictetus taught, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. This isn't abstract philosophy. It's practical survival. The way you interpret events determines whether they crush you or sharpen you. Reframing isn't about lying to yourself. It's not painting a disaster in bright colors and pretending it's a gift. It's about being honest with the pain, then deliberately choosing the perspective that strengthens you. When life asks, "Why me?" the victim answers with despair, but the Stoic reframes it into, "What can this teach me?" That single shift transforms a victim into a student. Thomas Edison, after thousands of failed experiments, famously said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." The facts didn't change, his frame did. Of course, you can't expect to step into chaos and suddenly be calm if you've spent every ordinary day reacting to every little annoyance. Calmness is built in quiet moments, in small decisions. It's built when you choose to let go of petty irritations instead of feeding them. It's built when you choose to listen before speaking, or when you catch yourself rushing and take a breath instead. Each act is a brick laid in the foundation of composure. Mental steadiness is not one habit, it's many. Meditation teaches you to observe thoughts without being consumed. Visualization teaches you to see yourself succeed before the test arrives. Physical training teaches you endurance, how to keep going when comfort disappears. Reading broadens your mind, sharpening your perspective. Each of these habits strengthens a different piece of your inner armor, and together they prepare you for storms you can't predict. Your environment matters too. Spend your time around panicked, chaotic people, and their energy will infect you. Surround yourself with people who think clearly, who stay composed, and their steadiness will rub off on you. Carl Jung once wrote, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. Choose wisely. Choose those who remind you of your own ability to remain calm in the storm. Because the storm will come, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but it will. And when it does, you will either be swept away in its winds, or you will stand unmoved in its center. That decision is not made in the moment. It's made in the training, in the quiet hours before the storm, in the discipline you build daily. You train your mind not because life is gentle, but precisely because it is not. And when the storm hits, you'll be ready. A calm mind cuts through the fog that blinds everyone else. When fear grips the crowd, when noise fills the air, when confusion hides the way forward, the calm mind can still see the path. It notices details panic erases. It finds opportunities chaos obscures. Calm doesn't mean you feel nothing. It means you refuse to be ruled by what you feel. It's the difference between the archer who fires wildly and misses, and the one who waits, breathes, and releases with precision. Calmness changes the rules of the game. While others are consumed by surface reactions, the calm mind looks deeper to the roots. It doesn't chase every distraction. It focuses on what matters. Jung once said, "Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes." Panic looks outward, desperate to control circumstances. Calm looks inward, determined to master the self. That mastery allows you to step outside the rhythm of the storm and create your own. Suddenly, you're not just surviving, you're shaping. When it is time to act, calmness does not mean the absence of movement. It is the presence of mastery. It is the warrior who stands firm while the battlefield swirls with chaos, waiting for that single opening that will decide everything. The modern world often mistakes noise, speed, and loudness for strength. People raise their voices, pound the table, or flood social media with instant reactions, believing that intensity equals power. But genuine strength has always lived elsewhere. It is found in the steady hand that refuses to tremble, in the measured words spoken without haste, in the gaze that remains unshaken while everyone else wavers. In a society where volatility is common and patience is rare, calmness becomes not only remarkable, it becomes valuable. Calmness is also a safeguard against mistakes you cannot undo. We've all felt the sting of words hurled too quickly or decisions made in a rush of emotion. In those moments, the mind isn't reasoning, it's defending, attacking, or escaping. A calm mind doesn't deny emotion, but it refuses to let the first wave dictate the outcome. It lets the surge pass before moving, knowing that even in urgency there is wisdom in pausing. That pause is where clarity resides. It's where you weigh not just what you want to do, but what will serve you best in the long run. Think of the contrast. A candle flickers in the slightest breeze, fragile and short-lived, while a lighthouse stands through storms, casting light for ships in the blackest night. Calmness is what turns you from the candle into the lighthouse. The seas may rage, but you remain steady, providing guidance not only for yourself, but often for others who are lost in panic. In panic, the mind seeks safety in shallow places, quick fixes, impulsive actions, the comfort of following someone else's lead. But in calm, you become the source of stability. You stop outsourcing your peace and start embodying it. And here lies the truth. Calmness is not only an advantage in crisis, it is an advantage in every arena of life. In negotiation, the calm person listens more than they speak, and in that silence they gain power because they catch what others miss. In relationships, the calm person hears the pain beneath sharp words and responds to the wound rather than the sting. In personal growth, calmness allows you to face the uncomfortable truths about yourself without running away. Seneca once wrote, "No person has the power to have everything they want, but it is in their power not to want what they do not have, and to cheerfully make use of what they do have." Calmness gives you that same power, the ability to meet reality as it is and work with it instead of fighting it. A calm mindset does not promise a life free from chaos. It promises that chaos will no longer dictate your choices. You cannot stop the waves, but you can learn to sail through them. And when others see you navigating storms without losing your way, their trust in you grows not because you claim to have every answer, but because you refuse to be swept away. Calmness earns respect without demanding it. It quietly turns you into the person people look toward when uncertainty rises. In workplaces, families, and friendships, that person becomes the anchor. Of course, calmness does not come naturally. When pressure rises, instinct urges us to fix things fast, to lash out, to escape. That is why steadiness is so powerful. It isn't instinctive, it is intentional. It is a choice repeated so often that it becomes who you are. Each time you resist the pull of panic, you strengthen the muscle of control. Each time you breathe through the impulse to react, you prove to yourself that you are not a puppet of the moment. Realizing that calmness is a skill, not a gift, changes everything. Instead of waiting to be thrown into storms and hoping to figure it out, you begin training in everyday moments. You practice calmness when you pause before replying to a message. You practice it when you hold your tongue instead of venting frustration. You practice it when you slow down before making a choice you cannot reverse. These micro decisions accumulate. They are like deposits into a bank account of resilience. And when the big pressure comes, the career decision, the family crisis, the health scare, your mind already knows what to do. In the end, calmness is real power because it equals freedom. Freedom from being pushed and pulled by every shift in circumstance. Freedom from becoming someone you don't recognize under stress. Freedom to choose your next step instead of having it dictated by fear. And in that freedom, you discover a strength that no amount of force or noise can imitate. You become the steady ground in an unsteady world. And from that ground, you can move anywhere you choose. We've all been there. The sudden surge of anger that tightens the chest, the rush of fear that scatters your thoughts, the wave of panic that insists you must do something right now. In those moments it feels like you are acting, but later, when emotions cool, you realize it wasn't action, it was reaction. And reaction comes with costs, often far greater than we anticipate. Words spoken in heat can leave cracks in relationships that never fully heal. Rash decisions made in frustration can close doors you didn't even realize you wanted to walk through. Sometimes the price is your peace. Other times it is your future. The danger of being ruled by emotion is not that emotions are bad. They are human. They add color and depth to our lives. But when they seize the wheel, reason is shoved into the back seat. Fear convinces you to run when you should stand still. Anger tells you to fight when walking away is wiser. And patience pressures you to force results before they are ready. The problem is that in the moment, emotions don't feel like noise, they feel like truth. Anger feels justified, fear feels protective. But not everything that feels true is wise. Emotion provides energy, but without the guidance of calm thought, that energy becomes destructive, like a river with no banks, flooding everything in its path. Many people have lost more to their own unchecked reactions than to the actual challenges life presented. It is worth remembering that the most pivotal moments often leave no chance for do-overs. An opportunity appears, you either step into it or let it pass. A relationship reaches a breaking point, your words either mend or sever it. A single, frustrated email can undo months of trust. One outburst in the wrong setting can alter the way people see you forever. These are the hidden costs of letting emotions lead. The debts you only realize you've paid once it's too late. Every time you surrender to impulse, you reinforce the habit. You teach your mind that this is how stress is handled. Before long, reacting becomes your default. You live on edge, primed to lash out even when the situation doesn't call for it. This is why the Stoics placed such emphasis on self-mastery. Seneca wrote, "No man is free who is a slave to himself. If you are enslaved to your emotions, you cannot claim to govern your life." But the reverse is equally true and liberating. Each time you resist the urge, each pause before speaking, each breath before acting, you carve a new pattern. You prove to yourself that you can feel deeply without being ruled by what you feel. The power lies not in erasing emotions, but in refusing to let them dictate the turns of your life. The cost of letting emotions take over can be invisible at first. Maybe no one calls you out. Maybe the damage is subtle, a quiet loss of trust, a slight shift in how others include you, an opportunity that mysteriously vanishes. You may never know exactly what was lost, but whether you notice or not, the cost is real. They accumulate, shaping your reputation, your relationships, and your trajectory. That is why calmness under pressure is not optional, it is protection. Calmness guards your relationships, your reputation, and your future. It ensures that when you act, your actions are deliberate, not reckless. Marcus Aurelius put it clearly, if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment. That ability to revoke, to reinterpret is the essence of self-control. It's seeing emotion as information, not command. And in the end, the temporary discomfort of holding back is nothing compared to the devastation of lashing out. The satisfaction of getting it off your chest fades fast, but the consequences of speaking or acting without calmness can last years. Ironically, the more you learn to hold steady, the more influence you gain. Calmness doesn't silence your power, it amplifies it. People naturally look toward those who stay composed. In times of uncertainty, it's the steady ones who become the reference point. They aren't louder, they aren't necessarily smarter, they are simply grounded. The irony is that the very thing raw emotions promise power, influence, impact is achieved far more effectively through their mastery, not through indulgence. That's why the next time you feel the heat rising inside you, remember what is truly at stake. It's not just your pride in the moment. It's the opportunities that might slip away, the fragile trust others have placed in you, the relationships that can only be preserved through your ability to remain calm. No one gets it perfect every time, and you don't need to. What matters is making the choice again and again to keep your mind steady when your emotions want to grab the wheel. Every time you do, you not only save yourself from regret, but you build a life that can actually withstand whatever comes. Because when fear takes over, something profound happens, not just emotionally, but biologically. It isn't just a feeling. It's a complete shift in how your system operates in moments of perceived danger. The brain's alarm system, the amygdala, sounds off like a siren. That signal races through the body, flooding it with adrenaline and cortisol, stress hormones designed to keep you alive. In an instant, your heart pounds faster, sending blood to your muscles. Your breathing quickens. Your vision narrows, locking onto whatever you think the threat is. For our ancestors, this saved them from predators. For us today, the same mechanism is triggered by far subtler threats. A cutting email from your boss, a tense confrontation with your spouse, an unexpected problem in a business deal. The body reacts as though your life depends on it, even when the threat isn't physical at all. Here's the problem. While the alarm system activates the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for reasoning, problem solving, and long-term planning, begins to shut down. It's as though the wise leader has been shoved aside and the primitive guard has seized control. Carl Jung captured this truth when he wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." This is what it looks like in real life. Fear hijacks your brain, drives your behavior, and never asks permission. At that point, you stop choosing your actions. You start reacting. And because reaction feels fast and decisive, it tricks you into believing you're in control. But in reality, your primitive brain is calling the shots. That is why people say or do things in heated moments that they later regret. The choice wasn't born of clarity. It was born of urgency. Your brain slipped into fight, flight, or freeze mode, where the only priority is to end the perceived threat as quickly as possible. The problem is that in modern life, most threats are not life or death. They are delays, misunderstandings, difficult conversations, things that instinct alone cannot solve. And yet, survival mode distorts time itself. Seconds feel like minutes, tunnel vision sets in and the mind obsesses over winning this moment, instead of succeeding in the long run. It's helpful if you're dodging a car in traffic. It's destructive when you're arguing with your partner, presenting in a boardroom, or deciding whether to send that heated email. Fear feels persuasive because it feels real. The adrenaline rush convinces you that there's no time to think. But most of the time, there is time if you create it. The challenge is that your brain chemistry convinces you there isn't. That's why people who've trained themselves to pause, to breathe, and to slow their thinking appear composed under pressure. They're not immune to fear. They've simply built a bridge between the primitive brain and the reasoning brain. The fear signal doesn't cut them off completely from clarity. This is where modern science meets ancient wisdom. Practices like deep breathing, mindfulness, and deliberate pausing are not just nice ideas, they are biological interventions. Slow, intentional breaths activate the vagus nerve, signaling to the brain that the body is safe. This reduces the flood of stress hormones and reawakens the prefrontal cortex. You're not just calming down in a vague sense. You are literally restoring your brain's capacity to think clearly. The difficulty is that most of us only notice survival mode after we've already snapped, fired off the harsh reply, or walked away from something important. But awareness changes that. The shallow breathing, the tightening shoulders, the racing thoughts, these are early warning signs. They are the dashboard lights telling you the primitive brain is about to seize the wheel. And in that moment you have a choice. Let it run. The show or intervene before control is lost. Think of it like driving downhill. At first, when you notice the speed increasing, you can tap the brakes and regain control. Wait too long, and the car builds so much momentum that stopping safely is nearly impossible. Fear works the same way. The earlier you respond, slowing your breath, grounding your thoughts, the easier it is to keep your reasoning brain online. If you wait, instinct will sweep you away, and fear is not the only culprit. Anger, frustration, even excitement can trigger similar responses. Any moment the body senses as high stakes, it will prepare you to react quickly. That preparation often bypasses the slower, more deliberate parts of your mind. The irony is that in the moments that matter most, big decisions, critical conversations, delicate negotiation, speed isn't what you need. Clarity is. And clarity comes only when the reasoning brain stays engaged. Understanding this biology removes shame. You stop blaming yourself for being overwhelmed and start focusing on strategies that keep you steady. Calmness becomes not a personality trait, but a skill rooted in managing the handoff between instinct and thought. The goal isn't to eliminate emotion. Fear can protect, anger can alert, excitement can motivate. But these emotions are meant to inform your choices, not dictate them. When you can feel the surge without losing the reins, you unlock a rare power. You become the steady presence in a world that constantly shifts. You become the one people look to, not because you shout the loudest, but because your steadiness is unshaken. That steadiness, born from mastering your own mind, becomes the foundation for everything else you achieve. There's always a fleeting rush when you react instantly, as if you've proven something, as if you've taken back control. But the reality is the opposite. Control has already slipped away. In that moment, you've surrendered your freedom to the very thing that provoked you. You've allowed the outside world, someone's words, an unexpected event, a passing insult, to dictate your next move. And once you hand over that steering wheel, you're no longer leading your life. You're following its lead. The trap is subtle. Reaction hides behind the illusion of speed. It convinces you that faster is stronger. But in truth, faster is often weaker, because it bypasses the part of you designed to weigh, measure, and decide with clarity. Acting on impulse is like grabbing the first tool in sight without checking if it's the right one. And once you swing, you can't undo the damage. Life is full of moments designed to provoke you, not always out of malice. Sometimes simply because living among other human beings means friction. But every provocation is also an invitation. Will you give up control? Each time you say yes, you train yourself to live at the mercy of someone else's moods, mistakes, or emotions, and soon their bad day becomes your bad day. Their panic becomes your panic. Before long, your state of mind no longer belongs to you. It's just a reflection of whatever chaos you encountered that day. The cost isn't only emotional, it's strategic. Reaction narrows your vision. It traps you in the immediate, obsessed with the short-term victory, winning the argument, defending your pride, silencing the other person. You might win the skirmish, but you lose the war. You might score a point, but lose someone's trust for years. The worst part is, you may not even realize what's been lost, because reaction doesn't look back. It's already sprinting forward to the next outburst, too busy to examine the wreckage it leaves behind. Carl Jung once said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." But reaction skips that process entirely. It robs you of the pause needed to ask, why does this bother me so much? What is this really about? Reaction doesn't want reflection. It only wants escalation. Yet those irritations, the things that pierce you most deeply, often reveal more about you than about the person who provoked them. When you react without pause, you lose the chance to discover those lessons, and you doom yourself to repeat the same mistakes again and again. There's no denying that reaction feels good in the moment. That's what makes it so seductive. It scratches the itch instantly, giving you the illusion of relief. But it's like drinking salt water when you're thirsty. It seems to quench for a second, but ultimately leaves you more parched, more desperate. The human mind craves relief from discomfort, and reaction delivers it fast. But true control is not about what feels good instantly. True control comes from choosing what will serve you best in the long run. This is why people who appear unshakable aren't those who lack emotions. They feel the heat rising, just like everyone else. The difference is that they have trained themselves to still choose carefully. History itself has turned on the difference between reaction and response. Leaders who stayed composed in crisis led their people toward survival. Leaders who gave in to rash decisions often steered them into disaster. On a personal level, the same principle applies. Your life is shaped not just by what happens to you, but by how you meet it. A sharp comment can be answered with a sharper one, escalating tension. Or it can be met with silence that preserves the peace. A sudden problem can be met with panic, or with a calm plan that keeps things moving forward. These choices feel small, almost invisible, but they accumulate into the story of your life. Every response builds a future. Every reaction chips away at it. Worse still, reaction opens the door to manipulation. If someone knows exactly what button to push to make you snap, they can steer you anywhere they want. Intelligence, talent, good intentions, they all collapse when you are easy to provoke. Staying calm when others expect you to erupt is not just self-control. It is self-protection. It shields you from wasting energy on battles that aren't yours, from burning fuel on fires you never needed to fight. Building this habit doesn't happen overnight. It starts in the smallest of moments, holding your tongue for a few extra seconds in a tense conversation, letting an angry email sit in your drafts overnight, stepping outside for air instead of arguing in circles. Over time, these pauses become second nature. You learn that not everything deserves your immediate engagement. Not every fire is yours to extinguish. The more you practice, the more your mind learns that safety and strength come from choice, not speed. Reaction thrives in the absence of awareness. But once you start noticing your own patterns, you begin to see it coming. You feel the spike in your chest, the rush in your head, and you realize this is the trap. And in that realization, you are no longer its victim. You don't have to step into it. You can let the wave crest and pass, and then move with intention. This doesn't mean never acting. It means acting on your terms and your time for your reasons. That kind of control cannot be taken from you. In the end, reaction offers only the illusion of power, a quick flame that burns out as fast as it ignites. Response, the deliberate, measured choice, builds something lasting. It protects your peace, your reputation, your relationships, and your future. Each time you resist the urge to lash out, you reclaim a little more of your life from the pull of chaos. That is the quiet power no one can hand you, and no one can take away once you've claimed it. There is always a point in heated moments when time feels like it's sprinting, when everything inside you insists you must act now. That is the point where most people stumble into reaction, letting emotions steer them blindly. But there is another path, one that feels unnatural at first, yet changes everything: the choice to pause. To take even one breath before doing anything. That pause might only be a second, but in that second, the chaos outside stops dictating your next step. You step out of its rhythm and back into your own. Carl Jung once said, "The man who looks for a bridge between the conscious and unconscious will learn to be guided, not driven." Response is guided. Reaction is driven. That difference can decide the outcome of your most critical moments. When you choose to respond instead of react, you stop pouring fuel on the fire. You grant yourself permission to think not just about how to survive this second, but how to shape the entire situation. In a world addicted to rushing to post, to comment, to argue, the person who waits long enough to see clearly always holds the advantage. They are not trapped in tunnel vision. They can see the whole field, the subtle movements, the quiet openings that only appear when you're not blinded by urgency. That is why skilled chess players pause before they move. Their strength isn't in speed, it's in precision. Pausing doesn't mean freezing or avoiding the decision. It means slowing down enough to ensure the decision belongs to you. That single breath can stop you from saying what can't be unsaid, from making the choice that can't be undone. In that breath, you remember the real measure of control, not speed but accuracy. Think of the times in your life when everything felt like it was burning down, arguments spiraling, opportunities slipping, days where nothing seemed to go right. Now imagine how those moments could have been different. If you had paused for just a few seconds before acting, that is the quiet power of response. It turns chaos into something you can work with, instead of something you must fight against. You may not control what life brings, but you always control the first step you take toward it. And that ability to pause, to breathe, to respond is the very skill that separates the one pulled under from the one who stays afloat. This ability isn't born in moments of crisis. It is built in the ordinary. You practice it every time. You choose not to reply immediately to a frustrating message. You practice it when you walk away to cool off before confronting someone you love. You practice it when you wait an hour before posting the angry opinion online. Each of these quiet decisions is training, and that training accumulates into resilience that will serve you when the storm truly hits. Frustration is something we all know too well. Yet every time you choose to listen fully instead of interrupting to defend yourself, you are practicing discipline. These small acts of restraint are like daily drills for the mind. They train you to notice the gap between what happens and what you do, and to use it wisely. The people who seem clear-headed when everything is on fire are not empty. Of feeling, they feel it all. They feel fear. They feel the sting of frustration. They feel the weight of uncertainty. But they have learned to let those emotions inform them without allowing them to dominate. Reaction almost always serves the moment. Response serves the goal, the principle, the bigger future you are working toward. And that difference nearly always comes down to one factor: discipline over impulse. There is also a subtle but powerful energy shift that takes place when you respond rather than react. Reaction tends to escalate. Someone raises their voice, you raise yours higher. Someone sharpens their words, and you sharpen yours in return. This creates a vicious cycle, a feedback loop that feeds on itself until the situation spins out of control. Response breaks the loop. It doesn't pour fuel on the fire. It redirects the energy. You may not immediately dissolve the tension, but you stop amplifying it. And often, that is enough to turn the tide. Think about the people you admire most in moments of crisis. Chances are they were not the ones flailing wildly, even with good intentions. They were the ones who remained composed, who chose their actions deliberately, who spoke in a way that steadied the room rather than inflamed it. This doesn't mean they were passive. On the contrary, they understood that a single well-aimed action is worth more than 100 thoughtless ones. They allowed the storm to rage without letting it dictate their next step, and in doing so, they shaped the outcome in ways a reaction never could. That is the beauty of response. It builds trust not only with others, but with yourself. Each time you pause and think before acting, you prove to yourself that you are capable of holding steady under pressure. Over time, this shifts how you see yourself. You stop thinking of yourself as someone tossed around by life's chaos, and start seeing yourself as someone who can navigate it. That self-trust is invaluable because it means you don't fear the next challenge quite as much. You know it will still be hard, but you also know you will meet it on your terms. In the end, choosing response over reaction is about reclaiming ownership of your own mind. It's about refusing to let outside events define you in the heat of the moment. It is the difference between being swept by the current and steering your own course. Each time you choose response, you are not just handling a single moment better. You are shaping your identity, your relationships, and your reputation. That's the true power. Knowing that even when the world is on fire, you don't have to burn with it. You can stand in the heat, breathe, and decide. You can choose your words, your actions, and your direction with a clarity that only comes from pausing long enough to see the entire field. And in that pause, you transform from just another person caught in chaos into the one who determines how it ends. In every field, in every era, the people who rise above share a trait that is often overlooked. It isn't always talent, resources, or even years of experience. It is composure. It is the ability to remain steady when the air is thick with tension and the outcome hangs by a thread. In sports, it's the basketball player who sinks the final free throw while the crowd roars and the clock runs out. In business, it's the leader who keeps their voice calm when the numbers look grim and everyone else is scrambling. In history, it is the figure who makes a measured decision when panic could have altered the course of generations. This is not luck. This is discipline. It is earned long before the critical moment arrives. Pressure strips away appearances. It reveals the truth of a person. When the stakes are high, the polish falls away, and only what has been built deep inside remains. Carl Jung once wrote, "In all chaos there is a cosmos, in all disorder a secret order." The people who thrive under pressure have trained themselves to see that hidden order. Where others only see confusion, they see patterns. Where others are pulled into the noise, they stay anchored to the signal, the few key details that will determine the outcome. That ability doesn't appear suddenly. It is forged through repeated exposure to challenge and the conscious choice, over and over, to keep breathing, to keep thinking, to keep moving forward when every instinct screams otherwise. Look at elite athletes. The difference between a champion and everyone else often comes down to mental steadiness. The sprinter who keeps perfect form in the final 10 meters. The tennis player who still dares for the risky line shot at match point. These aren't flukes, they are acts of trained calmness. The body knows what to do, but the mind ensures it happens. They've learned that tension slows you down, both physically and mentally. By keeping their minds clear, they allow their training to take over and give themselves the best chance to succeed. That isn't just skill, it is mastery over fear. The same applies in business. Companies face make-or-break moments all the time: market crashes, financial crises, sudden competitors. In those moments, the leaders who keep their composure are the ones who rally their teams and adapt quickly. While others spiral, they are already working on solutions. They understand that panic spreads faster than any market trend, and if they let it infect the room, it clouds judgment and leads to poor decisions. History is full of examples where calm minds shape the world. Winston Churchill, during the Second World War, spoke not with trembling fear but with steady resolve, giving his people courage when survival itself was at stake. Abraham Lincoln, in the midst of a fractured nation, was known for pausing before he spoke, carefully weighing not just the immediate consequences but the long ripples that would last for decades. These defining moments are never free from fear. If anything, the weight of the decisions makes them heavier. But by holding their ground mentally, great leaders and ordinary people alike create clarity where chaos could easily take over. And there is a clear pattern here. Those who thrive under pressure never wait until the crisis arrives to start practicing composure. Their steadiness is the result of countless smaller tests, moments when they chose patience over haste, understanding over assumption, silence over poorly timed words. Each of these choices is a brick, and over time, those bricks stack into a foundation strong enough to hold when life increases the weight. They have trained themselves to act from intention, not impulse. And this is why, when the stakes are at their highest, they trust themselves fully. Even outside the spotlight, this principle holds true. You don't have to be a general on a battlefield or a CEO in a global crisis to face high-pressure situations. For some, it's the job interview that could change the trajectory of a career. For others, it's the difficult conversation that might determine the future of a relationship. In those personal moments, your greatest advantage is the same as theirs: your ability to control your mind. Panic makes your thoughts race, your words stumble, your body language betray you. Calm, on the other hand, allows you to listen fully, to speak clearly, to choose your next step with purpose. It's not about pretending you don't feel pressure. It's about refusing to let pressure dictate your decisions. Pressure does not change who you are. It reveals who you've been all along. If you have built the habit of steady thinking, if you have practiced pausing before impulse, if you have trained your attention on what truly matters, that is what will surface when things get hard. If you've allowed yourself to be swayed by every emotion and every distraction, that is what will emerge instead. The calmness you see in high performers isn't arrogance, it's preparation. It's the product of day after day practice in mastering the mind. So when the moment comes, the mind serves them rather than betraying them. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." Under pressure, the mask comes off, and the real you steps forward. The question is, will that version of you be ready? Will they be grounded enough to see through the noise, to act with precision, to hold their place when the moment is too big for most? The answer lies not in how you act when everyone is watching, but in how you prepare when no one is. Those who thrive under pressure carry a quiet confidence that is unmistakable. It is not loud or showy. It is a steady presence that reassures everyone around them. They know that life will always deliver moments that test them, moments where there is no room for panic. And because they have trained for it, they can meet those moments head-on, not with reckless speed, but with deliberate, decisive action. That's how championships are won, deals are sealed, and history itself is shaped not in the absence of pressure, but through the mastery of it. When you begin to see pressure this way, your relationship with it changes. You stop fearing it and start seeing it as what it truly is, an amplifier. Pressure magnifies what is already there. It can highlight your weaknesses, but it can also showcase your strengths. The choice is yours. The people who succeed in amplified moments are not necessarily the most gifted. They are the ones who keep their minds from drowning in noise, who hold fast to the truth that even in disorder there is hidden order, and if they can see it, they can shape it. That's where real power lies. And remember, Pressure in everyday life can feel sharper because it is personal. It's not just about performance metrics, it's about your relationships, your sense of security, your reputation, your self-image. You can't walk away from it because it touches the things you care about most. That's why the stakes feel so high, even when the world doesn't notice. Jung once said, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." Every moment of pressure in your life is exactly that, a point of contact where you and your circumstances collide. The transformation, for better or worse, depends on how you meet it. Think about it. How many times have the smallest triggers sparked the biggest reactions? A colleague's careless comment that lingers in your mind for hours. A single look from a loved one that shifts the entire tone of the evening. These are pressure points, magnifying glasses that make small moments feel enormous. And your ability to stay calm here is just as important as in the big dramatic scenes we picture when we think of pressure. In fact, it may be even more important, because these are the moments that repeat, not once in a lifetime but daily, shaping you little by little until they define who you become, often without you even realizing it. What makes everyday pressure so tricky is that it often catches you off guard. You wake up expecting a normal day, and then something shifts. A meeting is suddenly moved forward. An email drops with unexpected news. A conversation turns in a direction you didn't anticipate. Your mind scrambles to adjust, and in that scramble, clarity is often lost. That's when reaction sneaks in, when you say the thing you wish you hadn't, or you make the choice that feels right in the moment but wrong in hindsight. The pressure didn't just test your patience. It tested your ability to steer your own mind when you weren't expecting to need to. And here's something we don't always consider. Not all pressure is negative. Sometimes it's hidden inside good opportunities. The promotion you've been aiming for, but now you must prove you can handle it. The new relationship that excites you but challenges you to show up differently. The personal goal that requires daily consistency, even when motivation dips. Positive change still carries its own pressure, because it asks you to rise higher, to hold steady when instinct tempts you to rush forward or retreat backward. This is why the calm you practice in everyday moments becomes the foundation for handling larger challenges later. If you can remain composed when a meeting runs off track, you're far more likely to stay composed when an entire project is on the line. If you can choose your words carefully in a small disagreement, you'll have more control when a conversation could change the direction of a relationship. Every minor test you pass strengthens the mental muscle that will hold you when the stakes are enormous. Marcus Aurelius captured this perfectly. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. The obstacles in your daily life aren't just inconveniences. They are training grounds, preparing you for greater responsibilities. Preparation doesn't happen by accident. It happens when you decide that every moment of pressure, no matter how small, is worth meeting with intention. That doesn't mean you live in constant hypervigilance. It means you build natural habits that anchor you when the ground shifts. You slow your breath when your chest tightens. You ask one more question before assuming you understand. You take a moment to check your tone before replying. These small habits become your guardrails, and over time they ensure that when pressure rises, you won't be swept away, you'll be ready. The smallest actions often look insignificant in isolation, but over time they form a pattern or rhythm of response that shields you from being swept away by sudden changes. This is why everyday pressure, though frustrating, is actually a disguised gift. It gives you far more practice than any one-time challenge on a stage or a single high-profile test ever could. Because the truth is this: life isn't made up of a handful of dramatic, history-making moments. Life is built on thousands of small ones repeated day after day. If you can navigate those with calmness and clarity, then when the spotlight eventually finds you, whether in your career, your relationships, or your personal growth, you will already know how to hold your ground. You will already know how to stand in the middle of uncertainty without losing your footing. Carl Jung once reminded us, "The world will ask you who you are, and if you do not know, the world will tell you." Every daily moment of pressure is the world asking that same question again and again. Who are you in this moment? And your response over and over becomes your answer. Each time you respond with clarity, instead of reacting in haste, you are casting a vote for the person you want to be. It's tempting to see everyday pressure as an annoyance, something to endure, until you can finally relax again. But it's better to see it for what it really is, the proving ground. Every tense meeting, every uncomfortable conversation, every unexpected decision, these aren't interruptions. They are opportunities to practice keeping your mind steady when it matters most. Because if you can win here in the small and unglamorous moments, you are already training for the bigger ones. You are building resilience for every stage, every spotlight, every storm still ahead. No one enters life already knowing how to hold steady in a storm. Calmness isn't a genetic gift given to a lucky few while the rest are left to struggle. It is built, shaped, and refined through effort, tested in real situations, and strengthened over time. It's no different from any other skill. You wouldn't expect to play the piano without practice, or to run a marathon without training. The ability to stay calm under pressure is the same. It's a mental muscle, and like every muscle, it only grows if you work it. The problem is most people expect composure to appear magically when the crisis hits. They believe they'll figure it out in the moment, not realizing that if they haven't trained in the quiet, it won't be there in the chaos. Training calmness begins with awareness. You cannot control what you don't even notice. Every time your voice rises, your chest tightens, or your thoughts start racing, that's a signal. It's an invitation to step back, to observe yourself, instead of being dragged along by momentum. That awareness is the foundation. From there comes deliberate practice, small, repeated actions that strengthen your mental control. It can be as simple as taking 3 slow breaths before answering a question, or pausing to consider someone else's perspective before rushing to defend your own. These moments may feel insignificant, but they are the mental repetitions that build your strength. Just as a runner adds miles gradually to build endurance, you add moments of patience, reflection, and deliberate choice into your daily life. And over time, that accumulation turns into resilience. That the real beauty of treating calmness as a skill is that you stop seeing it as fixed. You realize it can be built. Every stressful encounter, becomes a training session. The long line at the grocery store becomes a lesson in patience. The meeting that runs late becomes a chance to practice control over frustration. The unexpected change in plans becomes a drill in flexibility. What once looked like irritations now become opportunities to refine your center. That shift alone is transformative. It turns life into a living classroom for composure. It's also important to understand that calmness is not about shutting down emotions. It's not about becoming cold or detached. In fact, it is the opposite. Calmness means you can feel everything: anger, fear, excitement, without being controlled by any of it. It ensures that emotion is guided by thought, not allowed to run wild. When you train in this way, you stop fearing your emotions. You stop worrying that they'll hijack you, because you've built confidence in your ability to steer them. Like any worthwhile training, it's not always comfortable. You will want to react. You will want to rush. You will want to cut corners. That's where discipline comes in. Most of this work is invisible, happening in quiet moments no one will applaud. It's when you bite back a sharp comment. It's when you walk away from a pointless argument. It's when you choose to listen all the way through instead of interrupting. These are the mental push-ups, the slow, unseen repetitions that build a strength others will notice when the stakes are high, and people will notice. Calmness under pressure has a gravity to it. In tense moments, others look to you, not because you always have the answers, but because you don't lose yourself in uncertainty. This is why training calmness is worth the effort. It doesn't just change how you handle your own life. It changes how you influence everyone around you. Your steadiness becomes a reference point, a reminder that chaos doesn't have to dictate the outcome. Of course, this training only works if you start before the storm. You can't wait until you're in crisis to build the skill. It has to be woven into your everyday routines. Meditation, journaling, deep breathing, mindful walking. These are the ways you sharpen your tools before you need them. By the time pressure hits, you won't be scrambling. You'll already have the foundation. That's why people who know they can face life's tests without losing control carry a quiet confidence. It is confidence no one can hand you and no one can take away, because you've earned it in 100 small ways long before the big ones came. The training is never finished. Just as a musician keeps practicing or an athlete keeps training, you will keep refining your calmness for as long as you live. There will be slips, moments you wish you had handled differently, but each is another repetition, another chance to strengthen the muscle. Over time, you'll notice the difference, not only in how you speak and decide, but in how you carry yourself. When the pressure rises, you will feel it in your ability to slow the chaos around you simply by not joining it. In the end, calmness as a skill is one of the most valuable investments you can make in yourself. It pays dividends not only in the quality of your decisions, but in the quality of your entire life. You stop being tossed around by every wave of circumstance and instead learn to navigate with intention. You become more grounded, more capable, not because the world got easier, but because you became stronger. And that strength, built one deliberate choice at a time, becomes the foundation you stand on no matter how high the pressure rises. Your breath is the one constant you've carried from your first moment in this world and will carry until your last. It's so automatic, so familiar that you often forget it is there. Yet within that rhythm lies one of the most powerful tools you will ever have for regaining control of your mind and your body. When chaos closes in, when your thoughts scatter and your chest tightens, your breath is the switch that can pull you back from the edge. You don't have to escape the room, fix the problem instantly, or even speak a word. All you have to do is breathe slowly, deeply, deliberately, and the tide begins to turn. There is a direct line between breath and your nervous system. Under pressure, the body defaults to shallow, rapid breathing. That shallow breath signals danger. Your heart races, adrenaline surges, and your brain locks into survival mode. The chain reaction was designed for fight or flight, but most modern problems don't require either. This is why conscious breathing is so powerful. It tells your body, I am safe. Carl Jung once said, when we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. Your breath is one of the simplest and most immediate ways to change yourself in the moment. Slow, intentional breaths act as a counter-signal to panic. Inhaling fully, holding for a moment, and exhaling slowly activates your parasympathetic nervous system, the system responsible for clarity, recovery, and rest. This isn't abstract theory. It is biology. Navy divers, elite athletes, even surgeons, in the middle of life or death operations, use breath control to keep their hands steady and their minds clear. Your breath is your anchor. No matter how turbulent the waters, it holds you in place. One of the most practical techniques is called box breathing. Inhale for 4 seconds, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold again for 4, and repeat. It sounds almost too simple to matter, yet it can reset your entire system in under 2 minutes. It's not magic, it is a deliberate interruption of the stress loop. In those few measured breaths, the fog begins to lift. Options you couldn't see before start to appear. The beauty of breathwork is this: it's always available. Wherever you are, whatever you're facing, you carry it with you. Your breath is always with you. You don't need any special equipment, the perfect environment, or anyone's permission to use it. You can lean on it in the middle of a tense conversation without anyone noticing, right before you walk into a meeting that could change the course of your career, or in those quiet, restless hours when your thoughts won't stop racing. You can use it when you feel like you're on the edge of breaking under the demands of the day. Your breath is portable power, tucked away in plain sight. It reminds you that control doesn't always come from force. You don't have to dominate every situation or push harder to regain balance. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is soften ease into a slower rhythm, open your lungs fully, and allow your breath to reset you from the inside out. This isn't about pretending stress doesn't exist. It's about creating just enough space between stimulus and response so that you can choose your next move with intention. Every deep, deliberate breath is a reminder that you don't need to match the frantic pace of the chaos around you. You can set your own pace. You can create your own rhythm. And in doing so, you take back control of the one thing that truly belongs to you, your state of mind. Over time, training yourself to return to your breath during moments of tension reshapes your entire response to stress. Instead of leaping straight into panic or irritation, your first instinct becomes to steady yourself. Like building a muscle, you may not notice the growth each day, But when life suddenly drops a heavy weight on you, you'll feel the difference. Calmness under pressure stops being a goal you chase and becomes part of your identity. Returning to your breath is a way of turning inward, of finding clarity at the source. Instead of scrambling for control in the unpredictable world outside, you find it in the quiet, steady rhythm within. And it is this clarity that allows you to make wiser decisions, to speak with greater confidence, and to guide yourself, and sometimes others through fire without being consumed by it. The next time you feel pressure building, remember, the tool you need is already with you. You don't need to go anywhere. You don't need anyone else. You don't even need more than a few seconds. Just slow your breath, deepen it, and notice how the ground feels firmer beneath your feet. Notice how the panic begins to loosen its grip, how your thoughts line up again one after another instead of spinning in every direction. From that steadier place you can choose, not because the world suddenly became easy, but because you became steadier. In the end, your breath is more than survival. It is mastery. It is the bridge between chaos and clarity, between impulse and intention. The more you practice it, the more natural it becomes, until it's not just something you turn to in moments of crisis, but a way of moving through life itself. You stop waiting for calm to appear. You begin to carry it with you in every step, every conversation, every inhale and exhale. And just as your breath shapes your calm, the way you frame your experiences shapes your resilience. Two people can face the exact same situation. One will see it as the end of the road, while the other sees it as the beginning of a new path. The difference isn't in the facts, it's in the framing. Problems feel heavy, immovable, final. They trap you in survival mode. Challenges, on the other hand, feel like something to be engaged with, to be learned from, to be overcome. The facts may not change, but the label you give them does, and the label changes the story, and the story changes the outcome. This is the art of reframing the mind. It's not about pretending everything is fine or denying reality. It's about choosing the angle from which you view it. Carl Jung once said, "It all depends on how we look at things, and not how they are in themselves." You may not always have the power to change what has happened, but you always have the power to decide how you interpret it. And that interpretation is what separates despair from determination. When you see something only as a problem, your mind closes off. It's like walking into a room and seeing nothing but locked doors. You feel trapped, helpless, and exhausted. But when you reframe the same situation as a challenge, those locked doors become puzzles, opportunities to grow, chances to get creative. The situation hasn't changed, but the energy you bring to it has, and that shift in energy makes the difference between quitting and moving forward. Reframing begins with the questions you ask yourself. Instead of "why is this happening to me?" you shift to "what can I learn from this?" That single change moves you from victimhood into agency. Problems happen to you. Challenges are something you meet. Marcus Aurelius captured this mindset beautifully. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. When you see obstacles as part of the path instead of a block to it, you transform resistance into fuel. Of course, reframing doesn't erase frustration, disappointment, or pain. Those emotions are real and deserve acknowledgement. But reframing gives you a reason to keep going. It makes struggle meaningful instead of meaningless. Think of a failure in your past, something that once felt like a dead end. At the time, it may have seemed like proof you weren't good enough. But with distance, you can see that it sharpened your skills, redirected your focus, or prepared you for something better. That's reframing in action, transforming what once looked like defeat into part of the road that led you here. The mind resists reframing because it craves certainty. Problems provide clear answers. This is bad. I can't fix it. End of story. Challenges leave room for the unknown, for possibility. That space feels uncomfortable, but it's also where solutions live. Choosing to reframe is choosing to step into that space and trust that it holds something worth discovering. Jung also wrote, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." Reframing is exactly that choice, deciding who you will become through an experience, rather than letting the experience define you. One practical way to practice reframing is to change your language. Instead of saying, "I'm stuck," try, "I'm figuring it out." Instead of "this is impossible," say, "this will take some work." Language isn't just a reflection of how you feel, it shapes how you think. The words you use carve mental pathways. The more you use words of movement and possibility, the more your brain searches for ways forward instead of reasons to quit. Another practice is to zoom out mentally. When you're pressed right against a problem, it fills your entire vision. But when you step back thinking in terms of a year, 5 years, or a lifetime, you often see it differently. What feels overwhelming now may later be the very turning point that shaped your character. That broader perspective doesn't erase the difficulty, but it gives you patience to endure it without collapsing into frustration. Reframing also protects your energy. Problems drain you because they lock you in resistance. Challenges engage you because they give you something to pursue. The shift is subtle, but it changes everything about how you engage with life. Instead of waiting for problems to end, you begin actively shaping your role in them. At first, you will have to catch yourself consciously. You'll notice when you call something a problem and deliberately relabel it as a challenge. Over time, it becomes automatic. Fewer things will feel like walls and more things will feel like doors, even if those doors are heavy and require effort to push open. That is the quiet power of reframing. It doesn't make life easier, but it makes you stronger. In the end, the art of reframing is not about denying reality. It's about reclaiming your role within it. It's about remembering that the meaning of events is not fixed. Your perspective is the lens that determines their impact. Problems close you off. Challenges open you up. The more you choose to see challenges, the more you build a life where even the hardest moments carry within them the seed of growth. And once you can see that possibility, you are already halfway to finding the way through. The first instinct in the face of difficulty is often resistance. We see it as an intrusion, something unfair, something that should never have happened. The mind races to find someone to blame, and it often lands on the heavy, familiar question, why me? That question carries frustration, fear, and despair. It turns the situation into something personal, as if the universe has singled you out. But While that reaction feels natural, it anchors you in a place where you hold no power. You cannot change what has already happened, and asking, "Why me?" rarely moves you forward. It only circles the pain. Now imagine shifting the question entirely. Instead of "Why me?" you ask, "What can I learn from this?" The energy changes instantly. One question traps you in the past, the other points you toward the future. One makes you a passive recipient of life's blows. The other makes you an active participant in your own growth. This shift is not about pretending you're grateful for every difficulty. It's about refusing to let difficulties pass without leaving something behind. The "why me?" mindset feeds a cycle of resentment. You replay the situation over and over, searching for fairness where there is none. But life was never designed to be fair. Life was designed to be unpredictable. And unpredictability, though brutal, is also a powerful teacher. When you shift to "What can I learn from this?" you stop resisting what has already happened and begin asking how to turn it into something useful. You're not approving of the event, and you're certainly not enjoying it. You're simply refusing to waste it. "Why me?" offers comfort because it says this is wrong and you deserve to be upset. And sometimes you do. But standing there too long is like standing at the edge of a collapsed bridge, staring at the wreckage. You're not going to reach the other side by looking at what's gone. What can I learn from this? Is the blueprint for building something new. This mindset doesn't eliminate pain, it repurposes it. It pulls your focus toward action, meaning, and purpose, even when you're hurting. People who can make this shift don't escape frustration or despair. They feel it all deeply, but they refuse to let that be the end of the story. They treat every experience, good or bad, as raw material for the person they are becoming. Think of the setbacks you've faced, the job you didn't get, the relationship that ended before you were ready, the opportunity that slipped away. In the moment, each one felt like a door slamming shut. Yet if you look closely, many of those doors were redirecting you to another path, one you might not have chosen if you had stayed where you were. That's the essence of learning from difficulty, recognizing that each challenge leaves behind a skill, a strength, or a clarity you didn't have before. This is not about forcing a silver lining onto every cloud. Some losses are devastating, and their lessons may take years to reveal themselves. But the commitment to look for them, no matter how far into the future you have to search, keeps you from being defined by the worst things that happened to you. Carl Jung reminded us, your vision will become clear only when you look into your own heart. Asking, "What can I learn?" is a way of looking inward, of finding a thread of meaning no one else can hand you. The question works because it changes your role in the story. "Why me?" casts you as the victim. "What can I learn?" casts you as the student. And a student can adapt, grow, and eventually thrive. This doesn't mean you ignore injustice or pretend pain doesn't hurt. It means you claim ownership over the oozy. One thing no one can take from you: your response. That choice is yours, and it is the foundation for real change. The best time to practice this shift is not in the middle of catastrophe, but in small, everyday moments. When a meeting doesn't go your way, ask what you can take from it to improve next time. When a plan falls through, notice what it reveals about your flexibility. When someone's words sting, consider what they reveal about your boundaries or self-image. Each time you do this, you're training yourself to reach for the better question, even when your instinct is to complain or dwell. Over time, this habit reshapes your experience of life. Challenges stop feeling like dead ends and start feeling like detours. Failures lose some of their sting because you know they carry value, even if it isn't visible yet. You become less fearful of change because you trust yourself to extract meaning from whatever comes. That trust is worth more than any guarantee of an easy path. And here's the surprising truth. The hardest moments often teach you the most. They force you to confront truths you might have avoided. They push you to develop strengths you didn't know you had. They strip away what doesn't matter and reveal what does. This is the quiet gift of reframing, not denial, but deliberate. Meaning making dot. So when the next difficulty arrives, and it will pay attention to the question you ask first. Notice the instinct to ask, why me? Then challenge yourself to take it one step further. Ask the question that points you forward, not backward, because in that question lies the possibility of turning even the most painful moment into a building block for the person you are still becoming. And once you start living this way, no experience, good or bad, ever truly goes to waste. Patience is another virtue that everyone praises, but few truly practice. It's easy to talk about staying calm when life is moving slowly, when there are no deadlines, no confrontation, no pressure. But true patience isn't tested in peace, it is built there. It is built in the quiet moments when no one is watching. When your mind is restless, urging you to rush, and you choose to wait. Those small moments might seem unimportant, but they are the training ground for how you'll respond when life gets loud. Calmness in a crisis is not a trick you summon out of nowhere. It is the result of habits built in obscurity. Every time you let a conversation breathe instead of filling the silence, you strengthen your control. Every time you wait an extra day before sending a frustrated message, you give your reasoning mind more authority than your emotions. Every time you choose the right path over the fast one, you condition yourself to see beyond the instant. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Time is like a river, made up of the events which happen, and its current is strong. No sooner is a thing brought to sight than it is swept away, and another takes its place." Patience is the ability to watch that river without feeling like you must grab every passing branch. The challenge, of course, is that our world trains use in the opposite direction. Everything is instant. Answers in seconds, products in hours, entertainment in a tap. Waiting feels unnatural, almost wrong. That is why patience has become a form of power. In a society addicted to immediacy, the one who can wait, observe, and act only when the time is right gains a decisive advantage. They are not pulled by the same currents as everyone else. They are deliberate, grounded, and far less likely to make choices they'll regret. Patience is not inaction. It is timing. It is the archer holding the bow steady, waiting for the wind to shift. It is the leader who lets the room speak before offering their words. It is the person who listens long enough to hear what is really being said beneath the surface. Carl Jung noted, "Even a happy life cannot be without a measure of darkness, and the word happy would lose its meaning if it were not balanced by sadness." In the same way, action gains meaning only when balanced by restraint. Patience gives weight to your choices because they are considered, not rushed. This kind of patience cannot be faked in the moment. You can't expect to be unshaken in the biggest test of your life if you've never practiced holding steady in smaller ones. Impatience is a muscle. Feed it every day and it will overpower you when pressure rises. But patience is a muscle too. The more you work it, the stronger it becomes. It is built in the moments you choose to listen instead of interrupt, to think instead of react, to breathe instead of lash out. Those moments may seem insignificant, but they are the quiet drills that prepare you for high-stakes situations where calmness is not optional, it is essential. And patience doesn't just protect you from mistakes. It transforms the way you move through life itself. Patience gives you clarity. When you stop rushing to fix everything immediately, you begin to see the bigger picture. You notice patterns instead of isolated moments. You see the root of problems instead of just their symptoms. You recognize that many situations resolve themselves if given enough space. This isn't passivity, it's strategy. Some doors don't open by force, but by waiting for the right key. Seneca reminded us, no great thing is created suddenly. That's as true for your inner strength as it is for anything you hope to build. Training patience in every day, life also makes you harder to provoke. People who lack patience are easy targets. Push them a little, and they react exactly as expected. But someone who has practiced patience cannot be pulled so easily into another person's storm. They can stand in the wind without losing balance, and others can feel that steadiness. In tense moments, people instinctively look to the one who is still composed, still breathing, still thinking clearly. Patience also transforms your relationship with time itself. Instead of seeing time as an enemy you're racing against, you begin to see it as a partner. You realize that the most meaningful things, trust, wisdom, mastery, can only be earned with time. Patience teaches you to respect the process, to understand that rushing through lessons means you'll likely repeat them later. The irony is that what seems like slowing down is often the fastest way forward, because it prevents the costly mistakes born from haste. History's strongest figures were not just bold, they were patient. They knew when to act, but they also knew when to wait. They understood that a rash move could undo years of preparation. Their confidence to wait came from knowing they could endure whatever happened in the meantime. Patience is not passive endurance. It is active preparation, observation, and positioning yourself wisely until the right moment arrives. Building this into your daily life doesn't require grand gestures. It's forged in small acts of restraint. Pausing before replying, letting someone finish their point even when you think you know the ending, slowing your breath when it begins to quicken. These are the small weights you lift that build the larger muscle of calm. Over time, these choices accumulate into mental strength that cannot be shaken by sudden noise or pressure. And when life inevitably grows loud, you won't be scrambling for calmness. You'll already have it ready to apply. Calmness under pressure cannot be improvised. By the time the storm hits, you default to whatever habits you've trained. If your patterns are rooted in panic or avoidance, that's what will surface. But if you've trained yourself to pause, to think, to breathe, then when the ground shifts, you'll find yourself steady. You don't wait to learn how to swim once you're already drowning. You train in calm water, so when the waves rise, your body already knows what to do. The mistake most people make is believing calm will come naturally when needed. But chaos strips away the luxury of learning in the moment. It accelerates everything, compresses time, and leaves no room for trial and error. Like an athlete preparing for competition, your mind and body need rehearsal. Every act of self-control in small, low-stakes moments is training for the larger battles to come. Preparation for composure is not dramatic. It hides in the moments most people overlook. When you let someone finish before responding, when you take a slow breath before answering a hostile email, when you accept a sudden change of plans without lashing out. These aren't just good manners. They are push-ups for your patience. Practice swings before stepping into the arena. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The art of living is more like wrestling than dancing." Wrestling demands that you expect resistance at all times, to train body and mind to stay fluid under pressure. The same applies to life. If you wait until the heaviest blows land to find your balance, you're already behind. Calmness is sharpened in advance, not summoned on demand. At first, you must consciously remind yourself to slow down, to breathe, to choose your words. But repetition turns those conscious acts into instinct. When pressure rises, you don't have to remind yourself to be calm. You simply are. Not because you've erased emotion, but because you've learned to stay functional in its presence. The storm still comes, but you meet it with the same rhythm you've practiced all along. There's another benefit. Preparation shrinks fear. What unsettles us most in chaos is uncertainty. When you don't know how you'll respond, the unknown becomes a source of anxiety. But if you've trained, if you've run the mental drills in smaller situations, you carry quiet confidence into bigger ones. You know you can endure discomfort because you've done it before. That familiarity allows you to think clearly while others freeze. Think of a firefighter. They don't wait until the first blaze to learn how to handle their equipment. They run drills. They practice moving through smoke-filled rooms. They simulate high-pressure situations until their responses are second nature. When the real emergency comes, there's no time to hesitate. They act with precision because they've already been there 100 times in training. Your mind works the same way. The drills you run in daily life, pausing before reacting, staying steady when provoked, speaking with care in tense moments, are the exact things that prepare you for the fires you cannot predict. The storm will come whether you prepare or not. Life does not wait for you to feel ready. It will throw situations at you that demand clarity, restraint, and decisiveness. The only question is whether you'll meet them as someone who is trained or as someone trying to figure it out on the spot. One path leaves you in control. The other leaves you at the mercy of the moment. Training for calm doesn't require isolated retreats or endless hours of meditation, though those practices can help. It requires using daily life as your training ground. Every inconvenience is a chance to practice patience. Every disagreement is an opportunity to strengthen self-control. Every unexpected change is rehearsal for adaptability. When you live this way, you don't scramble to find composure. When the storm hits, you step into a role you've been rehearsing all along. That's the essence of preparation for chaos. It's not about hoping the storm will be gentle. It's about ensuring you are strong enough, steady enough, and practiced enough that it doesn't matter how hard the wind blows, you've already been training in calmer weather. Preparation doesn't just ready you for the storm. It transforms who you are when it arrives. Your mind is no different from your body. It needs consistent exercise to stay strong, flexible, and ready for what life throws your way. Mental clarity is not luck, not a mood that arrives by chance. It is trained built through small habits, repeated until they become part of you. Just as you wouldn't run a marathon without months of training, you cannot expect your mind to perform at its best under pressure if you haven't been preparing it in quieter moments. Meditation, visualization, and physical exercise are not luxuries. They are daily drills for resilience. They are the sharpening of tools before you need to use them. Visualization in particular works differently. Visualization is a practice often underestimated. Yet it's one of the most powerful tools you can carry with you. It is mental rehearsal, the deliberate act of walking yourself through the moments you know will matter before they even arrive. Athletes use it to prepare for game-winning shots. Speakers use it to rehearse stepping onto the stage. Leaders use it to prepare for conversations that could change the course of an organization. When you visualize, you're teaching your brain to recognize success before it physically happens. You're not just seeing what you want to achieve, you're practicing how you'll carry yourself in the process. And when the real moment arrives, it doesn't feel foreign or overwhelming. It feels familiar, not because you've been there with your body, but because your mind has already led the way. Physical exercise might seem like it belongs in a completely different category, but it's inseparably connected to your mental state. Movement clears stress hormones, stabilizes your emotions, and sharpens your focus. Beyond the biology, there's something deeper. It reinforces discipline. Every time you show up to train your body, even when you don't feel like it, you're proving to yourself, I follow through. And that mindset doesn't stay locked in the gym. It spills into your work, your relationships, and your decisions. Under pressure, it becomes the quiet proof that you can trust yourself to keep going, even when you'd rather quit. The beauty of these practices, meditation, visualization, and physical exercise, is how they feed into one another. Meditation sharpens your awareness, helping you notice the moment your focus starts to slip. Visualization then gives that focus direction, showing you not only where to aim but how to move toward it. Physical exercise strengthens your willpower, making it easier to stay consistent with both meditation and visualization even when life gets busy. Together, they form a feedback loop of clarity, confidence, and control. Over time, they change not only how you think, but how you live. The mistake most people make is waiting for a crisis before they start. They tell themselves they'll meditate when life calms down, visualize when a big opportunity comes, or start working out once their schedule is lighter. But that's like deciding to pick up a shield after the battle has already begun. These aren't someday habits. They are daily repetitions that prepare you for moments you cannot predict. Ironically, the days when you feel too tired, too distracted, or too busy are often the days you need these practices the most. At first, they may feel awkward, unnecessary, even silly. You might wonder if sitting quietly for 10 minutes or picturing a conversation in your head can really change anything. But the impact is cumulative. You won't notice it after 1 hour, 2 sessions. But weeks later, months later, you'll realize you're less reactive in tense situations. You'll find it easier to focus on what matters and ignore what doesn't. You'll face challenges with a steadier hand because you've been practicing steady hands all along. Daily mental workouts are more than routines. They are identity work. Each one is a small but deliberate act that shapes who you are becoming. They remind you that your mental state is not random, not left to chance. It's something you can train, condition, and strengthen like a muscle. The more you practice, the more you'll trust that strength to hold when the real weight arrives. So ask yourself honestly, if the greatest challenge of your life arrived tomorrow, how ready would your mind be? Would you meet it with the calm clarity you've been training for, or would you scramble to find those qualities in the heat of the moment? The answer depends not on tomorrow, but on today. It depends on whether you treat mental strength as a discipline or just a wish for the future. And the truth is, these practices don't require hours. They require intention. 10 minutes of meditation to start your morning. 5 minutes of visualization before beginning work. 30 minutes of physical movement to align body and mind. Done consistently, these actions stop being habits. They become part of your foundation. And when life tests that foundation, you won't break. In the end, mental clarity is not something you wait for. It's something you build, brick by brick, breath by breath, repetition by repetition. The people who appear calm and unshaken in moments of uncertainty are not lucky. They have been training for it every day in ways no one else sees. And you can do the same. Start small. Stay consistent. Remember that each time you show up for your daily mental workout, you're not just preparing for a better day, you're preparing for a stronger life. Who you spend your time with is not just preference, it's influence. The people closest to you don't merely share your days. They shape your thoughts, habits, and even your sense of what is possible. Their energy, whether grounded or chaotic, becomes the atmosphere you breathe in. Influence is subtle, but over time it seeps into your mind until their pace becomes your pace. Their fears and ambitions color the way you see the world. That's why environment isn't just physical space, it's the human ecosystem you choose to live within. Surround yourself with people who think clearly, and it changes you. Their steadiness is contagious. You see them approach challenges with focus instead of panic, asking better questions instead of rushing to judgment, and slowly, you start to do the same. The opposite is true as well. Spend too much time around complainers or impulsive decision makers, and you'll find yourself reacting more, reflecting less. The healthiest influences aren't just those who agree with you. They are people who challenge your thinking without tearing you down. They ask questions that force you to reconsider assumptions. They listen fully before responding. They focus on solutions instead of feeding on problems. These people sharpen you not by pushing their perspective onto you, but by encouraging you to refine your own. Think about how much of your mindset isn't built in solitude, but through the conversations you've had, the attitudes you've been exposed to, the stories you've absorbed. If your circle normalizes negativity, gossip, and avoidance, those will become your default. If your circle normalizes accountability, optimism, and disciplined action, those qualities will feel natural instead. Human beings adapt to their surroundings. You cannot avoid absorbing the emotional climate you live in. The influence goes deeper than mood. It impacts your decision-making. If you spend your time with people who panic at the first sign of difficulty, your instinct in a crisis will be the same. But if you surround yourself with people who stay calm, gather facts, and consider perspectives before moving forward, that instinct becomes yours too. Their habits of thought become part of your muscle memory, and in high-pressure moments, muscle memory is everything. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "You become what you give your attention to." And by giving your attention to certain people, you are in a very real sense choosing who you will become. So ask yourself, who brings you clarity and who brings you confusion? Who leaves you feeling capable and who leaves you drained? Who talks more about problems and who talks more about possibilities? This doesn't mean cutting ties with everyone who doesn't match the ideal. Life is more complicated than that. But you can be intentional about whose voices hold the most weight in your mind. Proximity matters. Influence matters. Even small shifts in who you spend time with can dramatically change your direction. The strongest environments are built on mutual influence. The people who lift you up should also be lifted by you. Growth is not a one-way street. When you engage with people who inspire you, you naturally want to bring your own clarity, effort, and integrity to the table. That exchange creates a cycle where everyone becomes stronger simply by being in the presence of one another's best. It is one of the quietest but most powerful forms of growth. Of course, negative or chaotic influences cannot always be avoided completely. Workplaces, families, and communities often place us in contact with people who drain rather than uplift. The question is, will you let that atmosphere shape you, or will you become the steady presence that begins to shape it? You may have to work with difficult people, live near them, or even share family ties with them. In those cases, your task isn't to cut yourself off from the world. It's to anchor yourself so deeply that you cannot be swept away by their chaos. You don't need to isolate yourself, but you must create enough grounding influences elsewhere to counterbalance the pull. Seek out conversations that sharpen your thinking. Spend time with those who make you want to be more focused, more patient, more courageous. When that becomes the dominant tone of your environment, the noise of negativity cannot drown you. Sometimes the people who frustrate us act as mirrors, showing us patterns we need to break or weaknesses we need to address. The lesson is valuable, but the key is to take the lesson without letting their behavior set your standard. You can learn from anyone, but you don't have to model yourself after everyone. The company you keep should be chosen not just based on where you are now, but on where you want to go. Over time, you'll see that your environment shapes not only your mindset, but also your ambitions. When you spend too much time around people who settle for less, it becomes harder to keep pushing for more. When you surround yourself with those who are striving, improving, and learning, you naturally start to do the same. You begin measuring yourself not against where you've been, but against where you could be. That is the silent gift of the right environment. It pulls you forward without force, making growth your natural state. In the end, the people around you are either reinforcing your best self or feeding the parts of you that keep you stuck. Choosing wisely isn't just about comfort, it's about growth. It's about surrounding yourself with minds that sharpen yours. energy that steadies yours and examples that raise your standards. Because just as their energy becomes yours, your energy becomes theirs. And when the right people are shaping your mind, you don't just think more clearly, you live more intentionally. Your mind is the most valuable space you'll ever own, and yet it's often the least protected. We lock our doors to protect our homes, ensure our possessions, put passwords on our devices, but the thoughts, beliefs, and emotions that shape our entire life are often left wide open for anyone to influence. Not everyone should have access to that space. Carl Jung once said, "Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes." Protecting your energy begins with looking inward and realizing that your inner state is not public property. It belongs to you. You decide who gets close enough to leave an imprint. Energy is not infinite. Every thought you entertain, every conversation you have, every person you let into your mental space takes something from you. That's not always a bad thing if you're surrounded by people who lift you, challenge you in healthy ways, and keep you focused. The exchange is worth it. But if you allow constant negativity, manipulation, or drama into your space, it's like leaving a window open during a storm. The damage may start small, one doubt here, one distraction there, but over time it erodes your focus, your confidence, your clarity. Protecting your energy doesn't mean cutting yourself off from the world. It means becoming intentional about who and what you allow to shape your inner state. Think of it as setting boundaries the same way you'd protect your physical health. You wouldn't drink from a poisoned well just because you're thirsty. So why take in mental toxins just because they're nearby? Sometimes it means limiting your time with certain people. Sometimes it means refusing to engage in gossip or walking away from conversations that drag you where you don't want to. One overlooked truth is that some people will drain your energy without even realizing it. It isn't always malicious. They may be stuck in cycles of fear, pessimism, or constant crisis. Without boundaries, their storm becomes your storm. You can care for them without being consumed by them. That is emotional discipline, the ability to empathize without absorbing, to be present without being pulled under. And influence doesn't only come from people. Social media, the news cycle, even casual conversations, these all shape your mood and perspective if you consume them unconsciously. A headline can spike your anxiety. A careless comment online can replay in your head all day. Protecting your energy means being selective with what you feed your attention to, because attention is the gateway to your state of mind. Each time you give something your focus, you give it a seat at the table in your mind. Understand this. Protecting your energy is not selfish, it's necessary. When you're constantly depleted, you can't think clearly, make wise decisions, or show up fully for the people and goals that matter most. You're not cutting people out because you don't care. You're creating the conditions to care better with clarity and strength. Of course, you can't always avoid draining situations. Life will place you in environments with difficult personalities, stressful demands, or chaos you didn't choose. That's why protecting your energy also means learning how to restore it. You need practices that bring you back to center when you've been knocked off balance. Time alone, deep breathing, journaling, mindful walking, or being with the people who refill your energy. These are anchors that help you recover. Protecting your energy also means protecting your values. When you allow people who don't respect your values to influence you, you risk slowly drifting away from who you really are. It doesn't happen all at once. It's in small compromises, in accepting things you once rejected, in ignoring the inner voice that says, "This isn't you." Guarding your energy means listening to that voice and having the courage to act on it, even when it's easier to go along with the crowd. The truth is, you teach people how to treat your mind by how you protect it. If you allow constant intrusion, people will assume your inner space belongs to them. But when you set clear boundaries, when you show that your time, your focus, and your emotional bandwidth are valuable, others learn to approach with respect. Protecting your energy sends a message not only to others, but to yourself. Your peace and clarity are worth defending. In the end, your mind is your most important asset. Every decision, every goal, every relationship starts there. If it's clouded by the wrong influences, you'll struggle to move with purpose. But when you protect it, when you carefully choose what and who you allow in you, create the conditions for your best self to thrive. Protecting your energy isn't just about shutting out the bad. It's about making space for the good, so that your strength is spent building the life you want instead of surviving one you never chose. And remember, the storm will come. Sometimes it builds slowly, a darkening sky you barely notice until the first drop hits your skin. Other times, it crashes in without warning, tearing apart the calm you thought would last. It can be loss, betrayal, or the collapse of plans you built your future on. When it arrives, it doesn't ask if you're ready. That's why readiness isn't built in the storm. It's built long before, in the way you train your mind daily to protect its calm, its focus, its strength. The storm will magnify every weakness you carry. There's no avoiding the truth that when life's weight presses down, you will feel the pull toward fear, the temptation to act recklessly, simply to feel like you're doing something. That is the moment where preparation reveals its value most. If you've done the daily work, if you've practiced calm in small conflicts, held your focus through minor distractions, built patience when it would have been easier to rush then, you're not scrambling to invent composure on the spot. You are relying on a skill that's already been trained. Preparation doesn't make the storm less real. It doesn't erase loss, difficulty, or discomfort, but it changes your relationship with it. You stop seeing the storm as purely destructive and start recognizing it as something that can be navigated, maybe even transformed into a proving ground. That is where resilience is born, not in pretending the storm is harmless, but in knowing you have the tools to withstand it without losing yourself. This is why it's worth asking yourself now, before the next challenge arrives. What are you building in the quiet? Are your daily habits anchoring you or making you fragile? Are you surrounding yourself with people who steady you or with people who add fuel to chaos when things get hard? These aren't abstract questions. They will be answered one way or another the moment the storm comes. And by then, it's too late to rewrite the script. Too many people wait for crisis before they think about how to handle it. They assume they'll rise to the occasion when the moment demands. But the truth is, we don't rise to the occasion. We fall back to the level of our preparation. That's why the small, disciplined acts matter so much. Every time you pause before reacting, every time you choose to listen longer than you speak, every time you refuse to be pulled into someone else's drum you're laying bricks for, the foundation you'll need later. It doesn't look heroic in the moment, but it is the difference between standing tall and being swept away. And when you survive a storm, honesty sets in. You learn that nothing is truly permanent, not comfort, not pain, not safety, not danger. Everything moves. The storm teaches you that. And if you pay attention, it also teaches you something about yourself that you are capable of enduring. More than you imagined. Each storm leaves you with a deeper understanding of your own capacity to adapt, to rebuild, to persist. That kind of inner knowledge cannot be given by anyone. It must be earned. But survival has its trap. It can make you overconfident. You might believe that because you endured once, you are now unshakable. And that overconfidence can make you sloppy. You let go of the daily disciplines that made you strong patience, awareness protecting your energy, forgetting that the next storm may not look like the last. Complacency is as dangerous as panic. True readiness is quiet, consistent, humble. It's the awareness that no matter how steady you've been in the past, the next challenge will still demand your best. When the sky is clear, it's easy to forget storms even exist. Comfort tempts you to let your habits slide, to tell yourself there will be time to prepare later. But the clear sky is the time to build. It's when you practice slowing your breath under pressure, reframing problems into challenges, deciding what and who you'll allow into your mind. Because when the wind starts to rise, you don't want to fight battles inside yourself on top of everything else, Doc. And when the storm finally comes, you won't waste time wondering if you're ready. You will simply meet it. You'll stand in its center, aware of its power, but not consumed by it. You'll feel fear pulling at you, but you won't obey it. You'll see chaos swirling, but within that chaos, you'll notice the faint thread of order that others miss, and you'll follow it forward, because the work you did before, the quiet discipline, the training, the intentional choices, will hold you steady, like roots deep enough to keep a tree upright, even when its branches are thrashing in the wind. That is the true measure of preparation. Not whether you can avoid storms, they're inevitable, but whether you can remain yourself in the middle of them. And when you can, the storm ceases to be the end of a chapter and becomes the beginning of the next one. You're strong enough to write when everything around you spins out of control. The calm mind becomes magnetic. It's not about being the loudest voice in the room or making the boldest promises. It's about being the steady presence in a world unraveling. In the noise of panic, people instinctively look for someone who isn't swept away. They gravitate toward the voice that doesn't shake, the decisions that aren't rushed, the presence that feels like an anchor. Calmness under pressure is rare, and anything rare is valuable. When the world is losing its head, that steadiness makes you the one people trust, the one they follow. And this calm isn't passivity or detachment. It is active. It is the quiet confidence of someone who sees clearly when others see only chaos. A calm mind doesn't deny that problems exist. It refuses to inflate them into something bigger than they are. This is why calm people often appear to move slower in a crisis. Their pace isn't hesitation, it's precision. They are weighing options while others are flailing. They are choosing the right move instead of the first one. In high-pressure moments, Speed without clarity is dangerous. Rush decisions create more problems than they solve. Calmness gives you the advantage because it widens your vision. It allows you to scan the whole field, to notice opportunities and risks that panic blinds others to. You conserve energy because you're not burning it on fear. And when you act, it is deliberate, often surprising those who mistook your stillness for weakness. The calm mind doesn't just help you survive storms. It earns trust in ways panic never could. Emotions are contagious. We all know how fast panic spreads. One person loses composure, and within seconds the whole room spirals. Doubt breeds more doubt, fear multiplies, and the atmosphere thickens with tension. But calm spreads too, and in a completely different way. It slows the pace of the room. It gives people permission to breathe again. It whispers, thinking is still possible. That's why true leaders, whether in families, companies, or entire nations, are often the ones who keep their composure. It isn't only about their decisions, it's about the environment they create. One where everyone else can think more clearly simply because they refuse to be swept away. There's also an authority that comes from calmness. When you're the person who holds steady while others are unraveling, people remember it. They carry the image of your steadiness in their minds. They recall the moments when you didn't flinch, when you didn't check out, when you stayed present while everything screamed for escape. That track record becomes your credibility. People don't just hear your words, they believe them. Because you've shown over and over that you don't surrender to chaos. And in a world that too often rewards volume over wisdom, that credibility is priceless. Calmness isn't the absence of emotion, it's the mastery of it. The calm mind still feels the pressure, still registers the weight, still notices the pull of fear or frustration, but it doesn't allow those emotions to hijack the decision-making process. It's like a skilled pilot flying through turbulence. The air hasn't suddenly gone smooth, but they've learned how to keep the plane steady despite it. That steadiness inspires confidence, and confidence inspires followership. Calm doesn't erase stress, it channels it into something usable. There's another benefit. Calm preserves your mental resources. Panic is exhausting. It burns focus, drains patience, and scatters clarity. Calm, by contrast, is sustainable. It keeps your thinking sharp for as long as the challenge lasts. It allows you to adapt without losing balance. And in long-term struggles, whether a drawn-out negotiation, a demanding project, or a turbulent relationship, the ability to think clearly over the entire duration matters far more than any single quick move. And here's a truth most overlook. Calmness is rare. Very few people train for it. Most drift through life letting their environment dictate their emotions, reacting to whatever happens rather than preparing for it. Which means if you make calmness a discipline, you stand out immediately. Your steadiness becomes a differentiator in a noisy world. Over time, calmness doesn't just serve you in isolated moments. It shapes your reputation. People start to think of you as the one who doesn't crack. You become the call they make when things fall apart, the one they want in the room. When the stakes are high, that kind of reputation builds influence, opens doors, and gives you a quiet power that endures long after the noise has faded. None of this happens by accident. Calmness is built in the ordinary moments, the small daily rehearsals. It's in the way you handle a minor setback, the way you speak when you're frustrated, the way you choose solutions over complaints. Each of those choices is practice for the bigger stage. When the true storm arrives, you won't have to force yourself to be calm. You'll simply step into the role you've been practicing all along. You'll stand in the middle of the chaos, aware of its strength but rooted in your own. You'll speak, and people will listen, not because you demanded authority, but because you've already earned it. In the end, calmness is the ultimate advantage precisely because it is the rarest one. Anyone can look strong when life is easy. Anyone can talk about composure when they're not being tested. But to remain steady when others unravel, to see clearly, decide wisely, and inspire trust in the very moment when it matters most, that is not just a skill. It is a superpower. But here's what you need to remember. Calm is not a one-time declaration. It's not a switch you flip and keep forever. It's a choice you make again and again, in both the big and the small. Everyday life will hand you opportunities to practice when someone cuts you off in traffic, when your phone buzzes and you feel the urge to answer immediately, when your plans are disrupted without warning. These aren't trivial, they are training grounds. Each time you choose calm, you strengthen a muscle that will be ready when the stakes rise. Yes, there will be storms. Yes, there will be setbacks, and people who know exactly how to provoke you. But if you've been practicing, those moments won't surprise you. You'll still feel the surge of emotion. Calm is not numbness, but you'll know how to ride the wave instead of being thrown by it. That's the power of turning calm into a lifestyle instead of a lucky reaction. And remember this, no one else can make this choice for you. You can build supportive routines, surround yourself with grounded people, create a peaceful environment, but ultimately, you are the one who decides how you respond. Calmness isn't perfection, it's resilience. It's the ability to reset again and again, no matter how many times you've been pulled away. When calmness becomes your default, you stop being reactive to the world. You stop being at the mercy of other people's moods or mistakes. You start living from the inside out instead of the outside in, and the benefits extend far beyond surviving storms. Your decisions improve. Your relationships deepen because you listen more and react less. Your work becomes sharper because you think with clarity instead of haste. And maybe most importantly, you begin to trust yourself in a way that's hard to describe. You know that no matter what comes, you'll meet it with steadiness. That self-trust changes everything. Others will notice it too. They'll see it in the way you speak, the way you carry yourself, the way you refuse to match the chaos around you. In a culture addicted to urgency and noise, the quiet confidence of someone who remains calm is magnetic. People will lean on you, not because you're flawless, but because you're steady. But here's the final truth. This isn't about anyone else. It's about you. It's about protecting your peace, valuing your clarity, and strengthening your own mind each day. Calmness is not a gift, it's a discipline, a practice, and a commitment. Every morning you will face the same question. Will I hold the line, or will I hand my peace over to whatever just happened? And each day you'll have the chance to answer it with your choice. When calm becomes your way of life, no storm can break you. No person can unbalance you. No setback can define you. You remain grounded, not because life is gentle, but because you've chosen to be unshaken. That daily choice transforms calmness from a fleeting reaction into an unbreakable part of who you are. So, remember this: calm is your greatest weapon, your most reliable ally, and the foundation that carries you through every storm. Protect it, practice it, live it, and let it guide you toward the kind of strength that never fades. If this message spoke to you, remember, storms will always come, but your calm is a shield no one can take away. Drop a comment below. When was the last time you lost your calm, and what would you do differently next time? And if you're ready to train your mind for deeper strength and clarity, explore the full StoicCraft playlist. Now your path to unshakable inner peace begins there.